All right, this is the Happening House Project Part 2. We just got done figuring out what our payments would be if we bought a computer. Now we're going to come down to the tab at the bottom of the screen, click on House, and we're going to analyze doing the same thing, what our house payment would be, depending on what size our dream home is. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in again so you guys can see a little closer. And we're going to figure out this same information just like we just did. The price of the house. Typically, home loans or mortgages are either 15, 20, or 30 years. When you buy a house, most people pay it off in 15, 20, or 30 years. Obviously, the longer you take to pay off the house, the lower your payment is, but the more interest you will pay over that period of time. So let's take a look at a house. Let's say we're buying a house for $200,000. Okay, our down payment is going to be 15%. So I'm going to come up here again and write down payment. So we can come back and play with this number later. And 15% is 0.15. It's 15%. So our down payment will be equal sign 200,000 times 15% equals 30,000. So we put $30,000 down. Now, just keep that in mind as you kind of go through. You get out of high school and you start working. Start saving your money because you want to buy a house. If you want to put 15% down on a $200,000 house, you need $30,000, which is a lot of money. So our loan amount, though, would be the price minus the down payment. So you always start with an equal sign. The price of the house minus our down payment equals 170. So we're borrowing $170,000. The interest rate, mortgage rates these days are about 6%. So we're going to put 0.06 in for interest rate. And the terms, meaning how many payments in 15 years, how many payments will we send in? Well, if we send it monthly, it'll be 15 years times 12, because there's 12 months a year. So equal sign. Click on the 15 for the 15 years, times 12, which is the number of months. Hit enter. So we'll have, in 15 years, we'll make 180 payments to pay off our $170,000 loan. Okay. So under payment category here, we're going to insert the payment function. I'm going to come up to our formula bar here, and right next to the formula bar there's that FX. Click on FX. Your payment function should be in the most recently used. If it's not, just click in the description box, type in PMT, hit enter, and it'll come back up. Okay? So select it, say OK. Here's the information we need to insert into the function. First of all is the interest rate, which is, it says rate down here again. You can read to tell you what it means. It's 6%, but we have to divide by 12 because that's 6% a year, and we're making 12 payments a year. So hit divided by /12. Then click in the number of payments, which is 180. So click on the NPER box, select 180 cell, and then the present value, click on the present value down here, and which is how much is the loan today, and we're borrowing $170,000. You can see down here in the little preview what it looks like. It's going to be $1,434.56. The future value, again, is 0. So you can put a 0 in there if you want, or you can just leave it blank. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and say OK. You can see then it returns $1,434.56. That would be our monthly payment. That, of course, does not include insurance on the house that you also have to add and other basic necessities of maintaining a household. All right. Now the question is, okay, that's if I pay off over 15 years. What if I take 20 or 30 years to pay off this house? Well, we're going to copy or fill down this amount. So highlight 2000 and then the other two cells, and we're going to fill that down. So coming up to the edit menu, come to fill. We want to fill right. Fill right, so 200,000 is copied down. The down payment is a formula, so we're going to copy that formula over by coming to the lower right-hand corner, clicking on that small little box. When the mouse changes shapes, click and drag that formula over. Oh, yeah, and look what happened. We have no amount there. And why didn't this work? Think about it. Let's go back to our formula. Let's double-click on the 30,000 and look at the formula. It's B4 times E2. Well, here's E2, but when we use relative cell reference and we copy that formula down, look over here, it changes from E2 to F2. And as we click down here, whoops, and as we click down here in cell the 30-year, it moved it down even further. So what we need to do is come back to our original down payment formula, edit that cell by double-clicking on it, and making E2 an absolute cell reference. And how do you make an absolute cell reference? That's right, the dollar sign. So click in front of the E and type in a dollar sign, and then arrow over, and in front of the 2 put another dollar sign. That makes E2 an absolute cell reference. Hit enter, and that 30,000 doesn't change. That's the same number. But click it again, copy it over again, and this time the amounts, the formula doesn't change. So we still have $30,000 down payment. The loan amount then, that's a formula, so we're going to copy that over. And our loan amount's the same. 6%, we're going to copy that over. And then the years, the payments. So far, everything is exactly the same. Everything that we've done is the same. So you might think our payment's not going to change much, but let's look at the terms. Copy that formula over. And you can see now that instead of paying off $170,000 in 180 payments, we're paying it off in 240 payments or 360 payments, stretching it out. Let's see what that does to our payment. Click on the formula bar, click and drag that over, copy that formula over, and we have pound signs come up, and this has happened before. If you recall, you don't panic when you see that. That's just saying that the column width, this width, is not wide enough to see the whole number. So I have to come up and I have to click in between and drag that column wider so we see the number. Same with column D. Click and drag it wider so you can see the whole number. So you can see how our payment has gone down. Instead of $1,400, it's only $1,200 if we pay it off over 20 years. If we stretch it over to 30, it's only about $1,000. Now we can play with our numbers a little bit. What if we, instead of 15% down, we only put 10%? So 0.01, enter, and that lowers our payments, or that lowers our down payment is less, but our payments go up. Do that again. I said that wrong at first, so I apologize. When we decreased our down payment from 15% to 10%, we're putting less money down. Therefore, we're borrowing more money. So if you only had $2,000 to put down, you can still buy a house, but your payments would be higher. Okay? Then we could play a little bit more. What happens if we wanted to pay um, buy a house that was only $150,000. So I'll go here under the 30 years and type in 150,000, and we paid 10%. Now our monthly payment's only $800. So you might say to yourself, I couldn't afford 1,000, or I can't afford $1,600 dollars a month, but I could afford almost $900 a month, $890. You can play with those numbers a little bit. Maybe you get a loan and you are able to, instead of 10% down, you can put 20% down on this. So it's 0.2 enter. So you put your $30,000 down, and now your payment's only $700 a month. So here, when you go out and you're looking for a house and you're trying to decide, can I afford it, this is a good way to play with the numbers to see how much you can afford, what your monthly payment is, how much of a down payment you need based on the current interest rates. Again, if we can find something, interest rates go down, which 6% is pretty low, but they are out there for 5.5. And we could find one for 5.5. It's 0.055 is 5.5, and then you can see how low our monthly payment is then. Very low over 30 years. Chances are, though, your interest rate is going to be higher. It'll be maybe, say, 7.5%. So 0.75, I'm sorry, 0.075. Hit enter. This, of course, rounded it up, so I'm going to increase my decimal point here to 1, and that brings that up if our payment is only, if our down payment is 10%, so I put 0.1 down, 0.1, enter, and there's the payment. And obviously I just kind of went over that pretty fast, and you probably just watched, which is fine. What I want you to do now, though, is take a minute and play with some of these numbers. Think about what type of house you want, how much you think you'll pay for that house. And between $100,000 and $200,000 is probably the range you're going to be in. There are houses for less, and there's certainly houses for a lot more. Play with those numbers, play with the interest rates, and see kind of what monthly payments you would have to come up with. After you do that, that is the end of our Happening House project. Actually, that's the end of Part 2, finding the number. Then we're going to do a Part 3 here where we actually kind of format this and make it a little bit nicer. So come back, save what you're doing, and we'll continue with the formatting section in just a minute.